to order for what's, I don't even know what today is. It's a blur. It's a 3-1, March 1st. We'll start with a roll call vote. We'll start with Darcy.
Darcy Dale here.
Bill.
William Olson here.
Rosie.
Rosie Kennedy here.
Jamie.
Jamie Knudsen here.
And myself, Sean Farrell, is here. All right. Well, next up is our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and
justice
for all.
All right. We have a handful of announcements and board openings. More so board openings and announcements. We have 5 Human Rights Commission openings, 2 openings on the Hamilton Historic District Commission, 2 openings for the Zoning Board of Appeals, 2 openings for the Open Space Committee, and a Affordable Housing Trust opening that will be effective April 15th, 2021. And so at this point we have a public comment section. If anybody on the Zoom wishes to talk about anything that's not on the agenda tonight, they are more than welcome to at this time. All right. Moving on to our Selectmen and Town Manager reports. How about, let's start with Bill tonight.
I don't have much. The thing I have is sort of new information, but beginning of discussion. Let me just get to my notes here. But all right, here it is here. The DHCD has starting to detail out a new zoning requirement that MBTA towns will have to have sort of a multi-residential zone within I think a half a mile of a commuter rail station or train station. Since that Hamilton has that, it's something that it's probably a year off from having to work on that, but Patrick's going to be proactive on this thing and really get our town council to interpret it, work with DHCD and see how it affects our zoning bylaws. But it's something we need to start working on now, but it probably won't be enforced for a while. But it seems like they're trying to make more multi-housing available near the commuter rail train station. So we'll see how that will affect the community and how we can work on that. That's all I got.
All right. Rosie, anything to add tonight?
Just some information about the Town Hall Building Committee, but I think we'll probably hold off on that until we have the discussion in general tonight.
All right. Darcy?
The only info I had was also on Town Hall Building Committee, so I will defer until such time.
All right. Jamie, how about you tonight?
No, I don't have anything to report.
All right. I'll keep it brief then too. Really, if you've been to Town Hall recently or around the building, you'll notice some activity out back with the cell tower. We are moving forward on that. So that's good news for a lot of residents in town who've been wondering when and what's going on with it. We are in hopefully the tail end of it, the home stretch. Well, not quite the home stretch, but site work has started anyway. There was something else I was going to add tonight, but if I remember, I'll just shout it out. I can't remember. I had some meetings and I was trying to think if I was going to share something about some of the meetings that I had, but I forget. My mind is a blank, I guess. Joe, anything from the town manager to report tonight?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. The town manager report was sent along in your packets last week, so you've all had a chance to look at it. It'll get posted on the website if it isn't already. It might have gone up today. Sean stole my thunder on the cell phone tower work starting, but we're continuing to do work with vaccinations and trying to find ways to get vaccinations into local residents through our collaboration with Connolly's Pharmacy. As most folks have read, the state has taken away local boards of health doses they're trying to trying to encourage people to use the mass vaccination sites. We're continuing to look for opportunities to find ways to help people get the vaccine closer to home. To that end, I was on a call that Congressman Moulton's office had organized today with several other town managers and local boards of health folks here in the Congressman's district. And, we basically expressed to them our concern that the state wasn't utilizing the local boards of health as a good way to get vaccines out. We made clear the point that many people have expressed that they don't want to go to the mass vaccination sites, that they're concerned about that kind of environment, and that they've all asked for local options. And we reminded them that, at the early stages of vaccinating with the first responders and the first phase of vaccinating residents over the age of 75, that towns like ours in partnerships had done very, very good at getting people vaccinated locally. So we hope that message has been heard. We hope that it'll have an effect on the governor and the Department of Public Health. Town clerk has asked me to remind folks that the deadline to return signed nomination papers for town elections is March 18th. There are elections coming up for Selectmen, Planning Board, Town Moderator, Assessors, Hamilton Housing Authority, and School Committee. People have pulled papers in all those categories, but nobody's turned anything in yet. So there's still time, if you're considering public service, to pull papers and get yourself on the ballot. I'll just stop there for tonight. I know we have a full agenda. That's the rest of the report will be on the website. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. The thing I was trying to think of before, and for some reason it's blocked in my mind, tomorrow night I have a chairs meeting with Wenham and the school committee that kind of talk where we're at with that process with the school budget. So I will update people as I figure out some stuff tomorrow. That meeting's, I think, 7 o'clock or so. So I'll probably, if there's significant change, and I guess the positive or the negative, I'll let you guys know as soon as I can.
Yeah. Sean, I forgot something that I forgot to add. Just on Sunday, I participated in the vaccination of, I think there were like between 400 and 500 people who came to that the COVID vaccine clinic at the rec center. And boy, once again, Ray Burnett and Rachel Lee, well done. It was so well organized. Everybody was happy when they left. So thank you to Ray and thank you to Rachel.
I think we've had a few small hiccups with some of the things, and I think the last hiccup, and Ray can probably attest to this, that it wasn't quite our fault with the way we had that rollout last minute, kind of get rid of these vaccines and get them into people's arms. So I think we did quite well, even though there are a few little hiccups, but we still served the population as best we could. So that's what we need to keep doing.
Well, we got rid of, I think I was the one who gave the very last vaccine of the day.
That's great.
So it was a very productive day. Nothing is ever perfect, but I think it was a momentous effort by everybody, and I just say thank you to them.
Sean, is there were you going to do the public comment?
I did, but we can. Did you want a public comment, or did you know if somebody wanted to publicly comment?
No,
just a point of order. No, I said it. We had a kind of a moment of silence, I guess. No one answered. Yeah, that's all right. So our first item on the agenda tonight is we have our wonderful Fire Chief Ray Burnett with us tonight, and for a department head report. So hi, Ray. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. I just want to come on and talk about what the department's done over the last year. It's been kind of a whirlwind, as we all know. First off, I want to start off with some good news. Over the weekend, we had a emergency call where one of our residents stopped breathing and was pulseless, and police, fire, and myself showed up within 3 minutes. Started CPR, gave the person a shock with the semi-automatic defibrillator.
Uh-oh.
and believe it or not, talking. And from what I understand, he had a couple stints put in at the Beverly Cath Lab, and he was home the next day. And I actually know the person and his wife very well, and they are very appreciative of what everybody has done. And you know, just good training, and you know, thank God that, you know, we're all here and trained and got there in short time, and it all worked out for the best. It really did. And it was a good job by all concerned who responded, and they did such a wonderful job. And I'm so happy to have the personnel that I have. So let's go. First off, I want to say that, you know, COVID-19 has been front and center in the fire department. First, we had to get the PPE for all the town's departments. We had to go through all the medical calls that we've had for the pandemic. Midway through, we had to kind of change gears, set up for the testing site paid for by CARES Act. We did that Wednesdays. We did it on Saturdays throughout the holiday and up until last week. And hopefully we'll continue that further. And that helped with contract tracing that Rachel and Karen has done to try and keep our residents safe. I believe it's all worked in the best interest of the town. I thank Joe for finding that money through the CARES Act. In January, Rachel Lee and myself and local other area departments, fire departments, started vaccinating first responders at the Topsfield Fairgrounds. I believe we vaccinated probably 1,200 first responders by the time we were all done. When we basically decided it was time that we take matters into our own hands and start vaccinating some of our seniors. So Rachel and I trained the EMTs to be vaccinators. We started vaccinating 75-year and old seniors in their homes that were homebound, couldn't get out. And after that, we decided to start running some clinics at the Hamilton Wenham Recreational Center, 65 plus, or some of the other people had 2 or more medical issues, and some of the forward-facing healthcare workers that were unable to find vaccinations elsewhere in other communities because things were so tight. Now in the process of finishing up second round shots with homebound seniors, along with holding 3 large second round vaccination clinics in March. Right now, the clinic dates are scheduled to be 3/7/21 with over 600 doses scheduled to be given, 3/21/21 with about 200 doses scheduled. And finally, our last clinic will be 3/28/21 with over 400 vaccinations scheduled to be delivered in the arms of Hamilton residents. I'm upset. Unfortunately, the state has decided to go elsewhere to these super sites instead of letting the local boards like ourselves, the fire departments and the Board of Health give the vaccination. I think it's a total mistake. I've talked to Brad Hill and Bruce Tarr. I got their ear, but unfortunately, I don't think the governor's going to change his mind. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in the future once these vaccinations become prevalent and more readily available. I actually also wanted to thank, Rachel Lee for all the work that she's done. She's done a great job. I want to thank Sean Timmons, and I also want to thank Kim Butler, the head librarian at the library, Hamilton Wenham Library. They have moved everything for us to be able to have vaccinations in the rec center and use the little side conference room. They've done an outstanding job. They've been very receptive. And they've done everything to help us to make this work. I know it's been an inconvenience, but they've been very great. They're very, super. Along with that, obviously the day-to-day operations of the fire department come, into play. This past year, we responded to about 820 emergency calls, which is approximately about 250 less than we did last year. And I contribute this to several different factors. Businesses and schools were closed. People just didn't want us in their homes because of COVID. I actually heard of residents, their fire alarms going off, and they felt like that they shouldn't call us because they didn't want the extra personnel in their homes while COVID was going on, and they tried dealing with it with themselves. I've also heard of people not wanting to go to the hospital. We've actually responded to medical calls where they absolutely refuse to go to the hospital, even against our advice and the paramedics' advice, due to COVID in the hospitals. They felt if they went, they were going to get it. That was a tragedy, I think, but I don't know if anybody was harmed by that, but that's what they felt. Training throughout the pandemic, we've been able to continue the training through social distancing and protocols, where I'm splitting groups up into 2 different groups and keeping everybody apart. I can happily say that none of our members, through training or work-related incidences or emergencies, have gotten COVID from in the fire department. None of our personnel. Some of them that work elsewhere in the EMS field, the paramedics and EMTs on other companies, have gotten it, and they fortunately haven't brought it back to us. They were aware of what was going on, and through the protocols, they let me know, and they did not respond to work, and they stayed quarantined and kept everybody else safe through the department, which I very much respect. I respected that for them. Personnel, always we have problems with recruitment and retention. That's usually an issue that we struggle with. Last year we hired 4 new call firefighters, 1 who was already trained to the level of firefighter 1-2, and was also a certified EMT. So that was a plus, a bonus for us. The other 3 we sent to the Massachusetts Call volunteer class, which we also held at the Hamilton Fire Department, and they also used the same protocols that we did, and none of them got COVID while they were in our facility. They just graduated last week, actually last Wednesday, and put a couple things on Facebook. Did a wonderful job. Unfortunately, they were unable to have graduation due to COVID and what the Department of Fire Services protocol has put forth. So they were unable to have that. Hopefully they can get together later on. So that training consisted of about 400 man hours of training that each and every one of them had to go through to get their level firefighter 1-2 certification. Great deal of effort that they had to put forth, a lot of training, a lot of their own time studying, and each and every one of them, I believe, got up in towards the 90 percentile in their class. There was Mark Anderson, Kim McGuire, and Dane Jorgensen. First real name is Morton, but everybody calls him Dane. Did an outstanding job. I'm very proud of them. And so was all the other members in the fire department. Last November, we had a retirement. Kenneth Brand, we call him Kirby, nicknamed Kirby, after 42 years of dedicated service in the fire department. We unfortunately lost him to retirement. He actually, and he's enjoying himself with his free time, not getting up in the middle of the night responding to calls. But I think he misses it a little bit. Colt Donahue, one of our call firefighters, was just went into the Army Rangers, and wants to be trained to be a medic, and he's going to come back when he serves his tour of duty. Sadly, we lost a great friend, a brother in the department. Thomas Raymond passed away this past fall, unexpectedly, and we will miss him. Great friend of ours. On excuse me, October 1st in 2020, we hired Justin Mullen. He was appointed to the 4th full-time firefighter's position that the town has had. He's made a great addition to our team and is fitting in very well. I'm very proud of him. So presently we have 5 full-time firefighters, including myself, and 23 paid call volunteer members. And out of those members, we have 16 certified EMTs, which has grown from 3 from last year. And I hope to build our EMT numbers up in the future. Equipment. Engine 1 is a 2016 Pierce Enforcer 1,500 gallon minute pump. Was purchased in 2018, was a demo unit. This pumper is in excellent condition with no issues. However, tomorrow it is being sent out to Legion's Fire Apparatus to have a warranty recall repair done. And otherwise that will last for many years to come. Ladder 4 is a 2014 Pierce Velocity. That is a Quint combination ladder pumper. It's a 105-foot ladder and also has a midship pump, which is 2,000 gallons a minute. It was purchased in 2015 as a demo unit. Was built in 2014, and that piece of apparatus is in excellent condition, will last us for many, many years to come. For that price, it better. I think it was close to $1 million. Engine 3 is a 2003 Pierce Saver 1250 pump. Was purchased and delivered as a custom unit to the town of Hamilton. We actually spec'd it out and built it. This vehicle is fair to good condition. However, it is rusting between the frame rails and is being kept in check by our mechanic. It has no other defects that we know about and is scheduled to be replaced in 2025. Squad 5 is a F550, was bought in 2006. It's a fast attack forestry, but 90% of the time it's used to go on medicals and carries all the medical equipment. It was a cabin chassis that we used the body off a 30-year-old vehicle to save the town money or repurposed it. This truck is in not very good condition. The engine was replaced once due to a chronic problem that those diesel engines had, and it's in the budget to be replaced in FY 2022. I'd ask you guys if you would have any questions for me. That ends my presentation.
Thanks, Ray. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just a thank you. Just a real.
I want to add, it's been a whirlwind of a year with everything going on, and my staff, Rachel, David Smith, Joe, basically all the departments have come together in camaraderie to make this all work. And I just, I thank everybody for their help, and we couldn't all have done it without each other.
That's much appreciated, Ray. And I think, I think the key is we all really care about the town. And, when we hit a crisis, they say it takes a village. We've all kind of come together and done individual things to make everything kind of come out on top, I guess. So it's good to see that we're all working together to accomplish, the goals that we need to for everybody.
Absolutely. It wouldn't have worked otherwise.
Ray, I just had a few questions for you about some of the equipment. You mentioned all the trucks and stuff, and their kind of lifespans and what we have. I know periodically we have hose inspections and lifetime of hoses. Have we had any yet this year? Have we had to buy new hose? I know sometimes that adds up pretty quick on the budget in our SCBA gear. We had a grant, I think, a few years ago, and I thought we were looking into another one for, I don't know if it was for SCBA or if it was some other kind of turnout gear or something like that. Am I off base here? I can't remember.
So 3 years ago, we got brand new SCBA's. We did not have a grant for that. Phil Stevens, the prior chief, went for a grant for SCBA's and we were turned down. We did get a $250,000 grant for new portable radios for all the personnel. As far as hose testing goes, I initiated doing that annually, and the first year I was here, we had quite a bit fail. We replaced a bunch. We transferred some money, replaced some. We had some fail while I was out on medical leave, having my hip done. I am planning on replacing, we have some money in the budget to replace some of that next year. I'm continuing that program so we don't end up behind the 8 ball as we did in the past. We went for a equipment grant. I believe it was $12,500 that we put in through the Department of Fire Services. I just called on it the other day, sent them an email, and because of funding, they're waiting for the funding to be enacted to award those grants. And that's really all I've gone for right now.
And you, I don't know if you, maybe I didn't hear it, but did you mention mutual aid? How has that been with surrounding communities this year? Have we had a lot of mutual aid calls that we've gone to or that have come to us?
We have gone to a few mutual aid calls to area towns, and we've called in Essex and Wenham several times, whether it had been their, we've called their ambulance in a few times. We've had some of their mutual aid engines in for what we call ally boxes, where they kind of join the areas that join closely to us, and if we are tied up on other incidents, we would call them and they've responded, and so hasn't the town of Essex responded with their ambulance and also an engine and a ladder several times to the town of Hamilton. So that system works very well, and it's much needed throughout the area.
Yeah, and kind of, I don't, not mutual or aid related, but mutual kind of cooperation with Beauport. Have we had continuing good relationship with them? I know there were some issues with some call times and ambulances in different places. Has all that been resolved?
Yes, I think that they've done an outstanding job. We've had some small minor time delays, over the time we've had them, but not significant enough to warrant relooking at things, relooking at the contract. The prior service before, I feel they're doing an outstanding job as far as having a higher level of service in the area where the contract does not require them to have that. As far as the time delay goes, I think that it's within spec, I would say. There have been few instances where it's run a little longer than normal, and they were accountable for it and explained why that happened. They're a non-dedicated bus, and they're supposed to respond in a certain period of time. And as far as the other ambulance service that we had prior to that, we've had longer responses at a larger frequency. So I think for overall, I think we're getting our money's worth out of them.
And you said we went from 3 EMTs to 16, is that correct?
No. We've added 3 more EMTs.
Okay. I said that's
Okay.
a huge jump.
That's a huge jump. It takes one of our call firefighters that went to the call volunteer class last year decided to get his EMT. The year prior decided to get his EMT, went, and then another one, and then we hired the last one that had Andrew Smith, who had his call class, his firefighter 1, 2, and his EMT. So that raised us up 3 more. 2 of the people in the class that just graduated plan on going to get their EMT. So we're working towards moving forward towards maybe an ambulance someday. The service zone plan, I failed to mention to you guys, is in the hands of OEMS. It's finally made it through John Brickett, our regional director, and got sent to OEMS. and was scheduled to be approved. All the back and forth, I think it went back and forth about 15 times with different additions and changes over the last year. And I just, I guess it's with the pandemic, but it's taken this long. But they assured me that it will be in our hands within a month. And I'm going to hold them to it. I just think it's gone way too long. And it's about time that it gets back to us.
All right, I've kind of monopolized the floor here. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Ray? No? All right. And, to echo Darcy, it's been a complicated and difficult year. And, we really appreciate all you and all of our firefighters do. And, we can't thank you enough for putting yourself out there. I know it's been difficult this year, but, on behalf of myself and everybody, we just, we're thankful that you're there for us when we need you.
And I just hope we can continue on. I hope the state will eventually give us the vaccines back when when the majority gets done, we can pick up those loose ends that are falling through the crack. I know there are a few over 75, over 80 years that have called and said, well, I didn't hear about it until just now. So I'm sure we're going to see some more of that. And, they basically told me how they're unable to get to some of these mass vaccination sites. And I still think that the governor's wrong. Even if they were able to give us a little bit of vaccine just to take, on a time by time basis to get these other elderly people vaccinated, I think it would behoove them to do it.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there.
Oh.
All right, anything else? No? All right, thank you so much, Ray. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And I noticed that a point of order to myself. I was so taken aback by Darcy seeing that I forgot the public comment. I forgot the consent agenda. I'm gonna blame Darcy, but it's my fault.
We'll
anyway.
Pretend none of it happened, right?
Right.
That's okay. I can take it.
All right, so we'll back up just a little bit and we'll cover our consent agenda. So we have on the consent agenda minutes from the Board of Selectmen meeting on January 5th, 2021, and minutes from the Board of Selectmen meeting on February 1st, 2021. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes January 5th, 2021 and February 1st, 2021.
All right, a second.
Second.
All right, and a roll call vote. We'll start with Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie?
Amy Knudsen, aye.
And myself, Sean Farrell, aye. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. Up next, we have amending our Chapter 91 vote, discussion and vote. Joe will cue it up here and kind of explain a little bit about why we're revisiting this.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. So 1 second.
I was about to tell you you're on mute, Joe. I didn't know if you're talking or not. I'll share a story. I had a remote class the other day that I talked for 20 minutes before somebody told me that I was on mute.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Not everybody was paying attention to what I was saying.
Oh, that's
Evidently.
pretty funny.
I don't think I'm on mute. I think that, so this is kind of a housekeeping issue. Last November, the Board of Selectmen voted to adopt the criteria for the annual Chapter 91 Senior Tax Exemption Program. There were a couple errors in the vote, the way it was taken. I have yet to figure out how it happened because we got all the information from the assessors and just transmitted it to you. And I don't know we haven't been able to figure out what happened. But the long and the short of it is that the limits were off by a little bit, and you had accidentally voted to have it for the FY 2021 year, which we're in. So this program's like got an 18-month lead time. So when you set the limits in November, you're really setting them because they take applications in January of the next year for the following year. So the applications period has passed. They have the number of applicants that they typically have. They all meet the criteria as outlined in this amended motion. And this would just really kind of clean up the the paperwork end of things. The limits you had evidently were not related to income limits, but they were state recommendations for asset limits, but we don't use asset limits in our adoption of the 91. So this is just a kind of a housekeeping issue. We apologize. I would love to be able to explain what happened. Nobody seems to be able to figure out what happened, but this would just make it a little easier, because then what the assessing department is in the midst of applying will fit neatly with exactly what you authorized.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Joe. So a bit of housekeeping with changing the year so it works for the applicants, and the limits are slightly changed as well. So
May
if
I make a
anybody, go ahead, Darcy. If you want to read, I think we might have to read it out loud.
Yeah.
So if you want to read the whole motion, and then somebody can second it.
Okay, I move to amend the application criteria for the fiscal year 2022 Chapter 91 Senior Tax Exemption Program, which was voted by the Board of Selectmen on November 23rd, 2020, to establish the income limits as $47,520 for a single filer and $71,280 for a married couple. The filing deadline for applications for this program was January 31st, 2021, and that remains unchanged.
All right, anybody want to second that motion?
Second.
All right, thanks, Rosie. And then we'll do any discussion on it. I think it's fairly straightforward. All right. And a roll call vote. We'll start with Darcy.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie?
Jamie Knudsen, aye.
And myself, Sean Farrell, aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
All right, up next, we have annual town meeting articles, schedule and discussion. We'll let Joe cue this one up too.
I keep muting because there's background noise here, so you can't see when I'm looking at something else that's not on your screen yet. But
It
let's
wouldn't
see.
be a meeting without background noise at Joe's house.
Entertainment, we call it.
I call it eavesdropping.
And on my Zoom earlier today with Joe, you probably saw my wife getting cat food and dog food for my pets behind me, I think.
Yeah, that meeting we were on, my son came in the back door with his new cast from having his snowboarding incident over the weekend. So I'm on the call, and it opens the back door, and then there goes the boy with the cast. So it's fun stuff this weekend. All right, so what we have here in front of you is the current remaining dates for the budget preparation and meeting schedule prior to ATM. I don't think there's any need for any changes here, but we just wanted you to look at it again. These are dates that were kind of agreed to before. We keep everything kind of in flux, but we want to call attention to some of the things that we've got coming up. By this calendar, you'll be closing the warrant at your next meeting on the 15th. And that will also be the time when you'll have to determine for certain whether you're going to place any ballot questions on the ballot for the annual town election. That will set off a period between March 15th and roughly April 17th, by which the FinCom will complete its review of the warrant articles, et cetera, and make their recommendations. The Board of Selectmen will make your recommendations for the warrant book, and we'll get them printed and published for a May 1st town meeting. See, I think that's all pretty standard there. We're trying to keep to the similar kind of cadence with this every year since I've been here. So, and these are some of the articles that are currently up for your consideration. You'll again vote to close this next week. Hopefully we'll get Tom McEnany of KP Law has agreed to be at the next meeting so that we can talk through this and he'll understand what you're doing, or what you want him to do rather, so that the warrant can be pulled together in time to be reviewed and commented on. We have motions for consent agenda, bills of a prior year. As of right now, we don't have any bills of a prior year that we know of. This is a standard article. There's the Town Hall building project that the Board of Selectmen has asked the Town Hall Building Committee to continue to go forward with. That would be both a general bonding authorization and potentially a community preservation committee as well. We've asked that the board approved, that the town meeting approved merging the pool and recreation revolving accounts. And I think that we've already talked that through with you and the FinCom, but we'll do it again. There's an FY22 capital program of about $338,000. There's a reserve fund transfer of just under $350,000. A water study article that was recommended by the capital committee at $100,000. A town budget article, that would be the omnibus article, and we're waiting to determine what's going on with the, as Sean referenced, the meeting that happens tomorrow night with what the final school committee budget is going to be and what its impact to the towns of Hamilton and Wenham are going to be before we determine how that article exists. In the last few years, you had 2 articles on the budget. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to get this all into 1 article this year, but we're keeping our fingers crossed and knocking on wood and not writing any checks until we know for sure. There is a proposal to do a solar program on the library roof that would need a pilot from town meeting. This is also all contingent upon the library roof project being fixed, that the library roof needs some repair work, and we're working on that. But the capital program does include our share of the money for the library roof. And Wenham is also appropriating its share of the money. There's also a request to, there are a couple of requests to the Community Preservation Committee. We referenced that above. We'll be seeking a revision to the conservation restriction out on Chabaco Road to allow the road to move away from the water resource area and be able to be paved. That's already been in works. Actually, tonight, our engineers are meeting with the Manchester Board of Selectmen because the town of Manchester is also going to be putting forward an article that would grant us a different easement than the one we have. So we currently have 2 easements out there. We have the adopted right of way from 1963, which is unfortunately across ledge and not buildable, etc. And we have the right of the way that pre-existed that. Where the road currently is. The proposal in Manchester is to have Hamilton abandon both of those rights of way, but be granted a new right of way for where the road is proposed to go. And Manchester is going to be considering that and hopefully putting that on their warrant. If we are able to get them to put that on their warrant and pass it, and we pass our CR, then we should be able to have all of our permitting lined up to do the road by the end of the summer so that we can get that road paved. And
Sorry to interrupt. When's their town meeting, Joe? Do you know offhand?
I don't know offhand. I know I spoke with Greg. He didn't tell me the date, but he did tell me it's a little bit after ours on May 1st. So, okay. But they're in the middle of warrant development now as well. So tonight was a good night to have the engineers and Tim Olson join the board out there and answer their questions. And I will find out for the exact date. Conservation, and then we just added this one due to the conversation that the board had the last meeting. If you want to put on a conservation restriction for Patton Homestead, it doesn't have to be done this way through a town meeting vote. It's just an option for you. I think we were considering other, what all the options are out there. I did send an email to the chairman of the Conservation Commission asking if he wanted to have a meeting with myself and Sean, as the board had asked me to last meeting. I haven't heard a response back, so we'll probably try and email him again and reach out through Bert, because that's been over a week since I asked him. So, and so these are warrant articles that we know about currently. We don't know of any others. As I said, we don't know of any bills of a prior year, but we do have that there for now, just in case something comes in late. And I'm willing to add if you folks have other items that you think need to be addressed at this town meeting, but that's where we stand as of today.
Joe, I have a question. Just what is the proposed amount for the solar pilot for the library roof? Dollar amount?
Yeah, I don't have that with me. I can have Vicky come in and at an upcoming. I'll ask her to come to the next meeting, just because we'll be talking about closing the warrant, and I'll have her give us a report. She had sent us some information, and it needs to be looked at by both Wenham and Hamilton. But because the library portion of the roof is in the town of Hamilton, the pilot needs to be signed by Hamilton. This may not even be on Wenham's agenda, but they would,
right.
It would generate electricity for the library, which would save both towns. So.
Right. Okay.
Do
Is there a grant involved with this effort? I believe Vicky was working on a grant for that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, you know what, I'm just gonna let Vicky come and talk about the funding and where the money's coming from, because she's working on so many different grants all the time. I know she's simultaneously just closed out our most recent Green Communities and got our application in for new projects for next year. So, and then she's been working on this rooftop solar project for a while. We've been considering this and the public safety building. Public safety building is also going to need to be replaced in order to do any kind of a project there. So you're trying to balance out the cost of fixing the roof against the benefit of having the solar on top. Right now, the roof at the library needs to be fixed regardless of whether we do it. So if we can get it all the stars to align and get the roof done this summer, then we could do the solar project and make it a good benefit for both towns. So we're trying to get that all lined up for you.
And when you reach out to her, Joe, if you reach out to her tomorrow, could you see if she has materials, kind of, if she has stuff ready? The sooner we get it, the better.
Yep.
So we can kind of mull it over. I'd rather not just kind of get it in our packet.
Yep.
Before the meeting, if we can.
Yep, I get it.
Just because, like you said, there's a lot of different factors there.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And can you explain to folks, because I don't know if everybody knows, what the recommended water study is all about from the Capcom?
So the Capcom, rightfully concerned, we're not planning to make any new recommendations for water projects right now, because we kind of feel like the water enterprise fund is kind of at its max for what it can do. But we do know that there are other projects that are, based on the water plan that was provided to us by our consultants at Dewberry. There are other projects that are recommended for down the road. The capital committee would like the town to, undertake a study to help me and help the town identify what the likelihood of alternative water sources are and what the costs might be associated with that. They had actually put it through as a capital request. I don't consider it a capital request, but I did think it had merit. So I thought we'd separate it out as a separate request. It makes sense. And we're still working through that. But it's got to be looked at by yourself and the FinCom as far as what it can provide to us right now in the short term, while we're still doing the master plan. I'm still doing I'm still engaged in other discussions as well to try to see what our options are for getting out of the Ipswich River. So
yeah,
we are pursuing grant money. We are pursuing grant money to that end as well. We have the Water Management Act grant that is available to us this fall, and we're going to be reapplying for an MVP grant that we didn't get last year.
If we didn't use grant money, where do you see that money coming from?
Free cash.
Yeah, just a few concerns about it, I guess, is that, well, one is I think it's a valid study to probably do. I'm wondering scope and timing. So some more information about that to everybody would be great.
Yeah. I wonder, just thinking out loud here, I wonder if that water study could be postponed a little bit until we get the master plan completed, and then we'd have more information maybe about where we're going and what are we going to need to get there.
Right. And I'm wondering if a fall town meeting might be a better spot for it. But
and we're spending a bunch of money on improving the plant, so I'm just wondering if we're going to want to get through that first before we
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I'd want to see the kind of scope of what the study's all about. I mean, I understand the basics of it, but I'd like to know a little more nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I agree.
And kind of the other factor is, if we do it when it's completed, what's next steps, right? If we spend $100,000 on a study and it just sits on the shelf for 10 years, what's the point?
Right.
And that master plan would help us know what we're going to do for next steps.
Exactly.
I see the merit in it, but I want to think that longer term scope and timing of things.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're studying the right criteria, right? So
Right.
so that the master plan indeed would give us more direction.
Right. Right. Any other questions on there? I think the rest of them are all fairly straightforward. You know, some we didn't really talk about. The one was the increase of CPC surcharge. I don't think there's much traction in that.
Not
I
right
just want to see
now.
a spreadsheet though of if we did that and that paid for the town hall, sort of what.
So we
Like, is there a
actually,
spreadsheet for that?
I will mention, this was on this list as of last week. Over the weekend, we got an opinion from town council. Pat Shannon had sought an opinion from town council. This is probably not something we could do here right now anyway. So what it comes down to is the law on CPC surcharge is pretty clear. You have to get a town meeting vote first, and then after the town meeting vote, the next regularly scheduled town or state election. And in this case, you can't line them up because you need to have at least 31 days of notice before the ballot question can go. So you can't put the ballot question together until you have town meeting approval, and you can't put it on. You could pursue this as a citizens petition question, as a ballot question, but you couldn't, and therefore sort of skip the town meetings step. But there's not really any likely way that we'd be able to get this onto the agenda, or rather onto the ballot this May. So you're looking at most likely, and there's no real state election this year. So you're really looking at, if you brought it to the town meeting now, you'd have to wait until the following May or April.
You can't do special election for this question.
You can't do special election for the question. Well, you could potentially bring this question up at the special town meeting in the fall and then have it lined up with the regular election, but you're not allowed to use a special election for this.
I think Jay Butler, who's the chair of the CPC, also said that he wanted a little bit of time because he's planning on doing some outreach, and he wants to get a coalition together of people who are interested in, how the grants would be spent. So I think he wants to spend a little time cultivating and giving out information on how it works. So I don't think there's any chance it's going to be in the next couple of town meetings.
Right. And even if we kind of kept it on and I'm going to air quotes fast tracked it here to a vote a year from now almost, it's still going to be another year out before we see some of that funding. So regardless, we're looking at it at least a year before we notice a change in funding, at least a year. So probably 2 years.
Right.
So you need to build quite a consensus and the positive spin on it when you bring it. I think there's enough benefit in it, but it's just getting the traction behind making the change.
So should I take this conversation as an indication that we should drop that art from the list of articles that we're considering? So we won't have that on the next meeting.
Right.
I don't even think we want a placeholder for it. I think if we had a placeholder for it, I think it may fuel the negative fire in it,
Right.
So
there hasn't been any discussion about
the
it.
only interest I had in it was if we could help fund town hall, but I don't know if that's possible, and I don't know what the math is.
You just wait, Bill. Just wait about another 10 minutes until the town hall building committee comes on.
All right, sorry.
I think the surcharge increase for the building renovation, it sailed that if we got on the boat, it should have been 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, it's always.
Yeah.
Hindsight is 20/20, as they say, right? So.
Hindsight is.
All right. Anything else with that? Any other questions as far as any of those meetings, any conflicts or anything? I know there's quite a few there. And I guess if you notice anything on a holiday or something, let Joe or I know, and we can adjust. All right. Up next, we have a water abatement for.
Oh, what about the town hall building?
Oh, I'm skipping stuff. I'm getting ahead. Joe's making me mess up here.
No, he talked about that. He mentioned it.
So town hall building committee. Town hall building proposal, I should say, discussion. Do either one of our building committee reps want to speak to this?
Well, I was going to say, is Mike here, our chairman?
I see Mike here. Mike, do you want to kick off this conversation?
Sure. Actually, Joe was going to put something together. Joe, do you want to do a rundown, or should I do it?
Why don't you do it? I know
Okay.
we talked this morning, but I didn't think I was going to put something together for tonight. Sorry.
Okay.
So you could use that email that came through that has wasn't that from Tim Olson?
That's okay. I can give you a quick brief on it.
Okay.
We're setting up to go to the spring annual town meeting, and we have a question that came up, and that was whether we should go back out to bid or not. We have numbers from last fall. We have to add some escalation to that. And we're also looking at some cost savings. We're looking at taking some of the contingency out of it. And we're also going back to the CPC for additional funding. It's a substantial amount of money, and it still comes out of the tax rolls, but it doesn't increase the tax rate. Every dollar we take out of the ask to the town would still be paid by the taxpayers, but it doesn't affect, that dollar doesn't affect the tax rate. So we're trying to get a little more CPC funding, and we have picked up almost $300,000 in contingencies that we were able to reduce, partly because it's money already spent. It's design contingency, things like that. So we're looking at a substantial amount of money that we're going to reduce the ask at Springtown meeting. So then the question comes up, should we have this bid out with current numbers, or should we go to town meeting and get hopefully an approval, go forward, and at some point when the maybe the CPC, I'm sorry, the COVID issues start to hopefully resolve early summer or midsummer, and then may possibly be a good time to go out for a town vote for approval to go forward. Then the question still comes up, when should we put it out to bid? Before town meeting, before town vote, or after town vote? And that's why I'm coming to the selectmen tonight, to both give you an update and to drop this question in your lap.
Thanks, Mike.
The current bid is good until when? I thought they were going to extend the length of the bid.
Yes, the general contractor, he was willing to extend his bid out to the end of May. Some of the filed sub bidders have had pretty big cost increases. Well, not huge, but their cost increases they're not willing to absorb. Lumber has gone up some, and there is usually a 3% cost increase in construction every year. So with that said, it's unlikely that the subcontractors will absorb the additional costs. So we do have to go out to bid, and I think it's probably the smartest thing to do at some point.
So you said our current bid is good until May sometime.
The general contractor said he would hold his number till May. Unfortunately, if one or two sub bidders have cost increases or do not hold their number, then it all bets off. We start over.
Gotcha.
And town council has advised us that they're not obligated to hold their bid more than 30 days. So, right. Would be relying only on their good
faith
will.
Deal, right?
I think we did talk a little bit this morning. Mike, Tim, and I did talk about this idea of when to bid. If you'd like, we could share a little bit of the conversation with you around that, because I was looking for the board to say absolutely not you, Mike, but that's okay. I appreciate the support. That's helpful. One of the things that we talked about, Mike and Tim and I talked about, was it would be good to try to. It might be good to try to get a new bid in before we get out to the election, but we also realized after having gone through this in the fall and the winter, we kind of tied our hands. We wanted to be upfront and transparent with the town meeting and get a good number to bring to town meeting. But when we did that, we got that bid at the last minute, and then we had only 30 days in which we needed to have an election so we could sign a contract. Right. And I don't want to see us do the same thing again. We have had two estimators look at it, and they gave us what was actually a pretty good number. The bid actually came in a little bit under their number, and all those numbers are kind of all in the same ballpark. I think that if the committee does a good job of being able to divert some of its, divert where we ask for some of the revenue, and then they're able to find some savings, I think it makes more sense to get it through town meeting on May 1st. You'd have until September to have a special election. I don't know. I know that I've talked to each of you individually, and there's some different thoughts about when you would have a special election for this. But you'd have several months before you'd have to have a special election. I would say that, if town meeting supports it with the previous bid and the estimates, you could do a rebid sometime later on, closer to the date you won't have the election, because I know that this, and I know you're all going to talk about this and you have a decision to make, but if you do the election in May, we're still dealing with, some uncertainty in the economy. We're still dealing with people just generally in a bad frame of mind. We've got people who are upset because kids aren't back in school. We've got people who are upset because we don't have enough money to get to schools. We got people that are upset about a myriad number of things. The vaccine rollout, even though it's not our fault.
Don't focus on the negative. We've got to look forward.
I'm with you, Darcy. I'm focused on the forward, but I'm also just trying to predict when. I'm trying to give you enough information so you folks can have the conversation and figure out when is the right time to ask the voters for more money. So
and then to add a different perspective to that, Joe, but is that you do see bidder fatigue if you ask somebody to price a job too many times, especially when it's not approved. I think you're going to get more interest in the project from the bidding side and more competitive bids if it's actually an approved project. I see that happen in the industry. So my opinion is that I think we do. I think we're smart enough to be able to put contingencies into to estimate for any escalation. Michael's done a good job of that so far, and our estimators have. So I'd rather get the project approved with an appropriate fund and then put it out to bid when people know it's an approved project. But I think that will get us a better number and get more people interested in bidding the project. But that's my opinion. So
I think I'm kind of on the same track as that. I think, we bring it to the Springtown meeting. We have the election in the fall, gives us time to get the information out that we tried to get out before, but we didn't do a great job of it, and then really start that grassroots, turning people out to the polls that share our opinion about fixing town hall. There's a lot of people we're just not going to convince, and we got to focus on the people that are in favor of it and getting them to show up. That's just the brass tacks of pretty much every political issue in the world, is getting your supporters to show up. And I think asking for some money from the CPC is going to help, and cutting out some of that added contingency money and lowering the kind of overall cost is going to go a long way. And I think Bill's point of that kind of bidding fatigue on an unapproved project, we don't want to bump into that and end up not getting good bids or any bids, so.
Another thing we should probably just make sure people are aware, about 30 years ago, the state, without notice, told us to vacate town hall. Everybody had to leave town hall because there was no ADA compliance. And what we did, we begged them for a little bit of time, and we put in that temporary concrete monstrosity off on the north side. And even Brad Hill said he can't believe we have gone this long without the state coming back to us, forcing us to do the right thing. So I think if we understand where we are and the dangers, and if we let people know we really don't have any alternatives, I think people are going to, when you have a house, you pay an insurance company, and that insurance company says you've got to maintain your house in order for you to buy that service. Well, we haven't done a very good job with our own house, and here we are making companies making their businesses ADA compliant and making sure the fire safety is on, there for every dwelling and every commercial building. Well, we have to do that too. And I just think we're going to have to bite the bullet and get it done sooner rather than later. That's just.
And I think to the point of I think I'm with Joe, and I don't remember what Bill said, but waiting till the fall to have the vote, I think will hopefully the tide will change. Darcy said stop being negative to Joe, but I think it's the reality of our situation that we're in. I think that when we get into September, a lot more people will be vaccinated. It won't be business as normal, but it will be more of a normalcy or the new normal. And people,
my only concern is that construction costs, like he said, are going up. And I've seen it, every day in the industry. So the best price we could have gotten was when we did it, a few months ago, and we knew that we got the best price at the time. And everything is trending in the other direction right now. So which is good for the economy and it's good for all of us, but it's not going to help our borrowing. So so that's the one risk we take. Obviously, the number could go down, it could go up. Right now, the trend saying it's going to go up. So
right. Do we have a consensus on how we want to guide Mike and his committee?
Mike, do you have any
Any thoughts or input, Mike? Any opinion?
I agree with what Joe had said, that and also what Bill said, the bidder fatigue and then trying to jam too much in a short period of time. I think not sending it out to bid right now is a good decision. I think getting through town meeting without incurring the cost of bidding costs $10,000 to $20,000. And if this project doesn't make it through town meeting, then, it's money saved. So I would like to get through the town meeting, get the vote, the positive vote, and get enough of the publicity out there of the need to do this town hall, and then go out to vote, get a project, and then bid it when there's a lot of interest and you have a funded project ready to go. That gets the people, the subcontractors, contractors, gets them all on board. It's a way to go.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that also. I think that's the most sensible approach.
Right. And I think that having a little longer runway before the vote gives us, besides maybe a little bit of a change in climate, I guess, but it gives us a little bit more time to really stress to people that we don't have much of an alternative here, because I think just the repair work on the building, just for the summer's repairs, if we do them all, I think we're pretty close to triggering that number. If we were to do all the repairs from, I think Mark Shaw or somebody had assessed some of the building and looked at some of the repairs that we need. And if we do all of them, we're going to trigger that number where we're going to have to do everything. So we've got a finite little space here to get this accomplished. And if we don't, I don't know what our alternative is. It's
more money.
It's more money, or we're in trailers or pods or something on the DPW yard. I mean, I don't know what other options we have. We don't have other land that we can really use. And building a new building might be about the same cost or a little less, but you've got land acquisition and displacement and all kinds of stuff.
And you wouldn't get CPC money for that.
And we wouldn't get CPC money. It may be $1 million or $2 million less, but you're not leveraging that CPC money, to Darcy's point, and then the whole bill is on the general fund and the tax. So it's a much more expensive project, even though it's less expensive. It's more expensive for us. I mean, it doesn't sound correct, but it is correct. Yeah. Jamie, any thoughts?
So I wanted to make sure I am understanding right. So, and again, I know we're all just sort of, it's just a discussion here, not a vote, but we're talking about, it's on the warrant for spring town meeting, right?
Correct.
Right. But then the election, the balloting isn't going to be until September, or?
Correct.
All right. Okay. And I'm sorry. And then the putting it out, the bid is between those two.
It could be before or after. If you go after the vote, then you have a funded project. You get more contractor interest.
Right.
So that could be a judgment call after you get through town meeting too.
Right. I guess I was just asking about the clarification, because I get, Bill's and others' points that bidders will be more if it's a approved project, but I guess by that we mean a fully approved project, right?
Right. There's a little caveat there, right?
Not a halfway approved project.
So Bill, I thought that's what you meant, that we should get the full approval before we put it out to bid, because then we would get the most competitive bids at that point. Am I correct? Did I understand that? Yeah.
That's my opinion, correct? Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Bill.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. If it's a fully funded project, you're going to get a lot more interest in it than an almost funded project. You know, and to Mike's point too, it could be a judgment call. If we look like construction costs are going to skyrocket in that next 2 months, you know, maybe at that point we say let's put it to bid right now and do it. But I would kind of imagine that we would do it after it was fully the debt exclusion and everything was all voted on. So.
And
I'm sorry.
And as far as what we put to the voters, it's is it kind of like how Joe has it on the warrant articles? It's like a range.
It's a not to exceed, depending on what cost we do, and that would be something that we would work out with FinCom, or not FinCom.
The range there is for your edification, so you can decide how you want to frame these these warrant questions next week at the next meeting. Those aren't for, you know, the voters would be facing a debt exclusion that has a not to exceed number. So that if you get bids in under, then you don't have to hit them for the whole amount, but it covers the potential.
Right, and I think that's the other important thing, that in the past, that number is a not to exceed number, and oftentimes people think we're going to spend that or more, but that's kind of what I don't want to say worst case scenario, but that's, you know, ideally we come in under that not to exceed number. That's the goal anyway.
Right, but you can't get much more of a public record than that, right? So the bidders know what well, I guess they know what they can exceed, but they know that they could be
right. And you know, it's a little shell game a little bit, right? When they're giving those bids to us, they want to give us a number that they're going to be low on our list, so we got to pick them, but they don't want to make it so low that, you know, they're not getting their maximum out of it. So it is a little bit of a cat and mouse game.
So our primary reason for approaching you tonight is to make sure that you're not expecting a hard rebid number for town meeting. And I think from listening to you, you're in agreement that we shouldn't be rushing to go out to bid on an unfunded project in a short period of time.
Right.
And we'll carry the numbers over to the town meeting.
Right. And I think that people at town meeting, and hopefully voters when they show up, will appreciate that we didn't throw another $10,000 or $20,000 at a bid that we necessarily don't need, and that would just give us a few more finite numbers when you already have numbers and we can do a pretty good estimate of.
Right. And that comment, and I just want to reiterate, we did the right thing by pricing it the first time around to get the number. So it wasn't like we did it after the right thing to do it. Doing it the second time around, I think we do it, you know, sort of a different way, because now we have a baseline. We know what escalation costs are. We can do a pretty good get with our construction knowledge in this town, this group. We can figure out what that cost should be. So.
Right.
All right.
Jamie, did you have something else? You look like you're going to start to say something before, or no?
No, not really. And okay, so yeah, we're obviously going to have to figure out what that not to exceed number is. Yeah.
Right.
We have that number. We have a target, and we're actually reducing the ask to the voters, the tax rate impact. We're reducing that, and we've made some good progress. We're going to go visit the CPC on March 11th, and we're going to plead our case, and we're trying to make this more attractive, and we'll have some pretty good numbers for you, hopefully, before too long.
Michael, thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah, Mike, we know it's been a lot these last, seems like forever. But,
it has been.
You know, it's been.
I'm getting old. That's the problem.
It's been since 2017. The legislature, the Hamilton legislature, has every year since 2017 approved and funded this journey,
right.
this this process.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic.
Right. You
Yeah.
know,
I
it's
think
the
they-
follow through. We didn't do too good.
So we didn't have time, and it actually turns out to be fortuitous because we're looking at a much reduced ask on the tax rate. So it actually did turn out to be fortuitous that we had this extra time.
Right. All right. Well, any other things for Mike before we let him off the hook here out of the hot seat? All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for everything.
All right.
We do
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Mike.
My
See you
pleasure.
Thursday.
Okay, good night.
Good
All
night.
right. Now we have a water abatement
Yes.
for 275 Asbury.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yep.
I didn't see a plumber's invoice for that particular repair, but I noticed that the other one had a plumber's invoice, and I didn't know. I was reading through the document, and it requires a plumber's invoice to prove that the job was taken care of.
I think that's the one that was on, we voted on it at the prior meeting in the plumber.
Oh, so we have already seen the bill.
I believe so, because it was
Invoice.
we voted on it, a few months ago.
Yeah.
And knew that it was gonna span two
2 decades, 2 billing cycles.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's my question is that, I know I've said this before, but our bylaw allows us only to approve one abatement, not two. And so what happens is if the leak happens halfway between one billing until halfway through the other billing, it affects two billings. So,
right.
but our town bylaw doesn't allow us to consider two. So I don't know how that we can vote on two. If we want to change our bylaw, it allows us to vote on two up to a period of so many months. But our bylaw does not allow us to vote on two. So that's my issue with this is that maybe our bylaw needs to be or whatever you call it, whatever it's a bylaw or an exemption or whatever it is. But per section 5 of the Town of Hamilton water abatement policy, it's very clear we can vote on. So
is it a bylaw or a policy?
I don't know.
Joe, can you clarify? Do you know? If it's a bylaw, we can't. If it's a policy, we could.
I'll have to investigate that. I'm not sure if that was passed by town meeting or by the Board of Selectmen.
But I guess what I would say is that I think it's reasonable to say over a 3-month span between two billing periods.
Yeah.
But
that's going to be an awful lot of bills that come in between two billing periods.
No, they really just, so let's say, I mean, that's what I was wondering from Joe, is if the billing period ends on, January 31st, when do they see their bill in the mail? Do they see it in February?
Yeah, what's the lag time between billing and the time period? Right?
So they get their bill 2 weeks later, and then they call a plumber. The plumber takes 2 weeks to their house, and then they're a month into the next period without a repair. So, and that's what these people are seeking for. That sort of that lag period. So I don't have an issue with sort of the understanding. I just think it's not how it's written into our policy. So I think we need to change the policy before we vote on these, is my opinion. These are both these water abatements are for two billing periods.
Not the same thing. No, not the same thing, but the same situation, right?
Right. Well, but we could vote on the second one because the second one is actually the first of two.
It's the first abatement of the two, right?
Yeah. But I was going to if we're only going to approve one, I was going to give them the opportunity to vote on the one that's more money. So we haven't seen the second one. So I'm not sure if it's worth not voting on this until we know if we're going to approve two and which one of the two abatements is more money.
The larger certainly would be reasonable.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So
Should we table this for a time when we have the info that we need?
I think I agree with Darcy. I think we need to table it till we know a couple of kind of fact-finding things, whether it's.
So I have 3 questions. One is, what is it a policy? Is it a bylaw? Can we change it? Number 2 is, what's the lag time between when the billing period ends and when the resident actually sees their bill? And then have we approved the larger of the abatements first before we consider the second abatement?
Right.
Okay. I'll ask Tim, and that's for the So the first abatement one, is that which you?
They're both really, because I don't want to vote on the other one, because if we vote on the other one, we find out the second abatement is larger. They haven't put that in front of us yet.
Yeah.
Mm. Right, that
Yeah,
makes
we don't want to approve a $5 abatement or a $500 abatement and then have, have them come back and have it be a different above or beyond.
Right, right.
Okay. So you're going to table both these water abatements?
Yeah, we'll table them both.
I think you need to make a motion. You need to have a motion to vote.
Darcy, since you had said it, do you want to make a motion to table?
Yes, I'll make a motion to table the 2 water abatements that are on the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, and we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Bill.
William Olson, do we need to say when we're going to table them to or not?
Next meeting?
No, I just assume it. Well, let's say next meeting.
Okay, William Olson, aye.
Darcy?
Darcy Dale, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
Jamie?
Jamie Knutson,
Myself, Sean Farrell, aye. And then we have up next the Human Rights Forum March 4th discussion. I was wondering, we have Michelle Lee, who's been so patient tonight. I'm wondering if we could jump ahead an item and then come back to the human rights. Is anybody opposed to that? Is that okay?
I don't mind. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So we have department head evaluation report and employee surveys and discussion. And where did lost my Zoom here. All right. Joe, do you have a copy of that evaluation? I can find it if you don't have it.
Yeah, I had it. I'm looking for it right now. I didn't have that pulled up. So
I have a copy of it too.
if you get it up, I'll just make you a co-host.
Well, I gotta find it first here, but I have it.
Who has it up? Who has it up already?
It's in the packet, right? So I can.
It was. I think it was added onto the packet, right? Because we.
Just seeing if
Thought I
it's
saw it.
scrolling through here.
Here, Joe, I just forwarded it to you.
Okay.
And Sean, I'm sending him what you sent me, so it didn't change, right?
No. Not that I think of. Michelle's online. I think it's the same as it was the first time it came out.
Okay. You have it now, Joe.
Well, I'm waiting for it anyway.
Going as fast as I can.
Sure. Got it.
It's the second Word document. The first one is the initial memo out to the staff. The second one is the
Okay.
Compilation.
Right, so while Joe's doing that, this is the evaluation that Michelle Lee put together for our department heads and our division managers. And this is the kind of summary of it. I have a meeting set up with all those kind of folks on Thursday afternoon just to talk about it and talk about how we can improve the document. We had some comments that they thought it should include some different type of questions and stuff like that. So I'm meeting with them to kind of see how we can build a better mousetrap, I guess, and get some more valid data so that it can help us to help our town manager.
We also didn't know what the number was out of, but 29.5, we didn't know what the total possible was. Was it 29.5 out of 30 or 29.5 out of 100? So that was the question we had too.
Or is it 29, or is it 29 divided by the 9 people that voted?
Right.
That's right. I didn't know how many people had filled out the.
9 out of the 15.
So I'm not sure if that, as Michelle has that answer now, but.
Yeah, if you look on that first sheet that's there, the synopsis at the bottom defines what the average score was between a 3 and a 4. I mean, you could do all kinds of different calculations. You had a scale from 1 to 5. You had 14 out of 16 people that took the survey.
So what was what was the most
max.
points he could have gotten if everybody gave him a 5? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Would have been
5.
8.
Oh,
Would have been what?
Joe, can you show that first sheet?
This is the first sheet on what I have.
Okay, there's two. There's one,
There's a
that-
letter.
I believe Bill just labeled it the memo that went out, but actually it's
That
not
was
the
the-
case. It
Joe,
actually
that's
is a
the first-
report of the,
Okay, I can get that one too.
Yeah,
I can
that was,
get that one.
that was the first Word document.
Okay,
And then Joe,
just stop the share. Give me a
could
second.
you, could you zoom it in for us folks with non-eagle eyes?
Yeah.
I think that's most of us.
Yes, yes.
Rosie, I must say in this little kind of in between that your headset is a much improved
Yes.
microphone. I didn't want to not say it because I've appreciated it, because before it was terrible. No,
Yeah.
but this is much better.
I know. I need one of those. You sound fantastic.
Woohoo! Yes.
I feel like a radio DJ now.
This is my DJ voice, not when I'm yelling at my son.
All right, so you can see here, Joe's kind of fast forwarding through it, but basically we gave this to all the department heads and the district managers, because we have more people that are kind of direct reports to Joe.
Keep scrolling down, Joe.
Heads.
Now, above that, Joe.
This is what you're looking for?
Yep, it says that for 14, I believe, people reported back. So 14 times 5 is 70. And then if they did, so it's a score between 14 and 70. And then
Okay.
it shows you at the bottom what the top two average were, what the center, and then what the bottom was.
Yeah, but
I don't have
it's-
that. I don't have that. It's not on here.
It says 9 out of.
Right there, it says overall, the rates were consistent across the board. The town manager received the highest rates in both integrity and collaboration. The value of the respect and service were within 5 points of each other. The lowest rating consistent with each evaluation is in communication.
Did everybody kind of comprehend that?
No, I still am confused. I mean, we can get into it later. I'm still confused with the numbering because it doesn't make any sense. There's 14 people filled out and you got a
14, the
29.5.
highest points they could get would be 70, and the lowest points he could get would be 14. So he ended
So-
up with the 29.5 in the center.
Okay, but the letter says you received 9 responses. It doesn't say.
Was it 9? Okay, I had 14 in my head for some reason. That makes it even better for him.
Right, right. So the highest score would be 45.
All right, that makes more sense. And did everybody give him at least a number, or did anybody was there any zeros?
There were no zeros, no.
Okay, all right.
All right, Joe,
Is
can
that-
you
yeah.
go back, or can you click on and get it so we can
See it in the big screen.
see it on the big screen again? I'm testing your technical skills right now.
Yeah, he's perplexed, we can see. Where's
I'm just glad that wasn't one of the testing category, or one of the categories.
Yeah.
I'll try to zoom in now.
that's
yeah.
you're doing well. You're doing well.
Better?
That's good. Yay. That's excellent.
Okay.
Do you want to answer your question? Do you want Ms. Taylor to give you new words?
And the bullet points you see there is what I've taken, I summarized the total of evaluations that were received. Some of them comments are nice and others are not so nice.
Right. So I guess you guys have all seen this in your packet. Do you want to go over any specifics? Would you like Michelle or I to read over the whole thing? Is there any kind of things in particular that you wanted to glean from this department head and district manager's evaluation of Joe?
Well, communication is going to need some work.
Yeah,
So
and I
what are
think
the
we had that same in our evaluation, right?
Mhm.
We were consistent with that.
So we have to think about options for improving lines of communication.
Right. And I would say that, you know, when I'm looking through this and I'm looking through ours, there's similarities. So it makes me think that we weren't in the dark when we did our evaluations. You know, they weren't polar opposites. You know, there were some similarities in them. So I think that's good. You know, in some of the areas that need improvement, you know, now that he's got the feedback from us and the feedback from the department heads and district managers, that, you know, that's something we can all work on together to improve. You know, there's nothing really glaring to me that's really deficient that needs immediate attention, other than I think more levels of communication and talking more with his department heads about rollouts and communicating different policies and stuff that come down from us and things like that. But I think too, it's been a unique year, to say the least. So there's been time in town hall, time outside of town hall for all kinds of staff, including Joe, where, you know, we haven't had staff at town hall. We've had town hall closed and open at different times. So it compounds things to a certain level. You know, but I think moving forward, I think this is all good feedback for him and us as to what to work on.
I mean, so, and I'll just add, like, I mean, and I probably haven't given this as much thought as I should, so hope I won't put my foot in my mouth, but you know, on some of it, I feel, you know, feels like obviously I would like to be talking, you know, I know they're anonymous, right? I would like to have more detail. And so I guess I wonder, is there any way to follow up with that? So it's just more of a question, I guess. Because you know, I mean, context is everything. I mean, you know, there's you know, there's some things that, you know, you got to be Superman to or Wonder Woman to you know, to perform pretty even competently across all these categories, I think, you know, for all employees. So it's tough, but there's some, you know, like that are maybe a little concerning enough that you're like, okay, well, this might be a serious concern that sort of needs to be dug into.
Right. I mean, you know, and I think it's
to help everybody. No.
Right. I think context is one thing. And then I think too, you also have a lot of varied personalities and opinions on how things should be, right? And I think the context is important, but at the same time, it may be that person's view of context, if that makes any sense.
Perception, it's called.
Perception, right? Perception. You know, so I think the summary is good because it gives us an overall feeling and evaluation. You know, whereas if you dive into some of the specifics, it may be helpful, but sometimes it may be perception, right? As Darcy said.
Sorry, Darcy.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm doing a quick calculation to get percentages. Have you done that, Michelle Lee?
I have not, no.
Oh, okay. Because I'm just doing the numbers, like 26.5 divided by 45, which is the max, and you get the answer, multiply it by 100, and that gives you your percent. Yeah. So I just wanted to let everyone know we could do it in percents too.
Yeah, if just to kind of expand on what Sean was saying, you'd be very surprised on how reluctant a lot of the department heads were to actually want to participate in this, and needed to be reiterated several times over that their answers would be confidential, and it would not be shared, and their identity wouldn't be. And you know, Sean has meetings with everyone, so I think the whole thing of like putting something in writing was really kind of terrifying to people. And that no one really had, I mean, there were a couple, but no one really had anything bad to say. So it's kind of, it was bizarre. I wasn't sure really what I was going to get out of this. And a lot of people, like I said, a lot of the census was, even with you guys, was the same across the board. You know, everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses, and everybody has their own priority of what they think is most important too. So you kind of put a little bit of that on the whole process too. But I'm very interested to see and to find out what they'd like to add to it, and you know, what different layers that they would like to have there. So I'm very interested in the process.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's on topic, but when I meet with them on Thursday, I'm obviously going to take copious notes on what their kind of ideas are for improving the document, and I'll bring it back to us. And then I think it's worth us having a discussion as well about, you know, how do we improve the document? Do we take those suggestions and keep them, modify them, whatever? What are we looking to get out of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
This should hopefully strengthen our evaluations as well. You know, this year it's, I describe it other than saying that we have two different evaluations, but I would say that eventually they should be part of the same evaluation. Right. We have a selectmen evaluation that we've completed, and this is kind of added information for us to help. But I think eventually I would advise that we merge these two evaluations into one somehow, because really, you know, I've said it before that some previous TM evaluations that I've done had no relevance to my interactions with the TM. It was, you know, whether he wore a hard hat on the job site. I don't know. You know, things like that were just irrelevant to me, but maybe to the DPW director, it is relevant. So, you know, those questions are valid, but maybe not for us.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm not a big fan of numbering. I don't think that there's a comments that mean something, not numbering. People don't always know how to fill. They just fill down the middle, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. But
right.
So it's more, comments are more important to me than numbers, because it's not a test. It's not a test that we're right and wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The bulk of the kind of change or improvement or pats on the back come from those comments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it a more succinct thing that you can take action on.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing with the comments and with the numbering, that the theory behind that is you could and as you can see, a lot of the comments are the same. So you could have one person give them a 1 and a different person give them the 5, but they give the same exact comment. So that's the point of balancing comments with numbers, because it's how important that is to that person on a scale of 1 to 5 and what their interpretation of it is.
Yeah.
So that, you know, two people may say, well, we know nothing that happens from the Board of Selectmen meeting, but he communicates pretty well. No, he's terrible. He doesn't tell anybody. So it's like that 1 and that 5. And so that's the balance and the purpose of doing numbers and comments.
Right. Joe, you can take it off the screen if you want. So I guess if you haven't yet, give it a look over and see if there's anything in the document. I guess 2 things. Anything that you think is worth having a conversation with Joe about. And then the other thing is if there's improvements to the document itself that you think would be better. And you could share those with Michelle Lee or myself, and we'll work on kind of rejiggering the document to improve it. And Michelle, did you want to talk about the survey?
Yes. So we're also working on a employee engagement survey. I've sent it a couple of times. The latest one, I've just kept it in a Word document because I want to put it in a SurveyMonkey, and I thought that would make editing like having to switch all the different pages. Darcy had offered some great additions to what I had, but again, it has, you know, a comment section. It has the scoring section, and the purpose of the employee engagement was for it not to be anonymous, because we want to follow up with the employees. We want to elaborate more on the ideas and the suggestions that they have. And I want to make it mandatory that they have to do it. And I'm not sure how well that's going to go over, but it's really important to start bringing these conversations to the surface, as opposed to everything as, whispering and interpretation and going back and forth. Like, you need to tell us, we need to work together. We need to find out what's realistic, what's not realistic, and get facts. And that's what the whole goal, and that's what I would like to accomplish. I might be unrealistic myself, but
no, I
that's
think,
what I want.
yeah. And I think part of it, if we promote it in a way that it's going to bring positive change and better morale, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Exactly.
And we want a healthy town hall and a good group of people, and I think we have that.
Yeah.
But at times morale dips, and what can we do to bring it back up and make people feel that they're valued at their job? Because if you don't feel valued at what you do,
Right.
that's a big way on your psyche, and you're miserable or you leave.
Yeah, and we want to attract, future quality candidates for different positions as well.
Right.
We don't feel, who wants to go work there? Nobody gets along. The building's a mess. Blah blah blah. It's like, no, actually, it's a pretty great place. Everybody gets along, and we have a beautiful new town hall.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Right. Right. Any other input or comments?
Michelle, what are you looking for us on the survey thing? Do we need?
If you had any input, if you want any changes, if you don't like the format, if you had any questions that you want to add to it, or any questions that you want to ask.
Yeah. So give that a good once over if you haven't yet, and see if there's anything that's you feel is missing, and just send it to Michelle, and she'll work on incorporating it if it's good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I think, thank you, Michelle, for
Thank you, Michelle.
with us.
Thank you, Michelle.
And now we have, I can find it again on my agenda. We have our last item, right? Are we at that point now?
Yes. Amazing.
And our last item is the Human Rights Forum. Thanks for sticking with us, all the folks that were waiting to talk about the forum, or at least hear the discussion. We've got a forum finally coming up this week. Looking forward to it. I think it's hopefully a new positive thing for us. Jamie, do you want to talk about the forum a little bit? Or Rosie, either one, or both?
I'll let Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously, we have discussion about the Human Rights Commission, a little bit about its history. I think, Sean, you're gonna present it some, and then sort of our I wasn't sure whether Chief Stevens is going to have a chance to, or is going to present at all. And then we have our main moderator, Joe Borsellino, which maybe if Joe wanted to give a little more background on him, he can. And then we do have, a few people to share some different perspectives. I mean, honestly, I'm just saying for myself, I've been on part of the planning group on this, and there have been some surprises and that have not gone the way that I had expected. And, there's been agreement as part of this that it might be helpful as part of the meeting to be devoted to hearing like personal stories of people, because sometimes someone's personal story has sort of more of an impact than talking about statistics or about human rights issues, out there in China or where, wherever it may be, but, close to home. So that's kind of the path that we headed down. But I wasn't aware of, the identity or the views of one of the people until really until the announcement came out, and you know, some of the, you know, those views, you know, that person, the views of that person really, frankly, I think is kind of the antithesis of someone who understands the importance of human rights for all people. And I believe it's a, you know, a mistake to have that person be put forth as the town as a speaker. But I, you know, apparently that is going to happen for the purpose of, you know, this meeting. My point is just to let you know that I don't, let the public know that I don't think it's a good thing for our town. I don't, as I think about the, you know, town of Hamilton, I just don't think it's good for us to be putting forth that. I think it's perfectly great to give the public, you know, just like we have a public meeting now, you know, for people to express their opinion. But you know, and that includes Thursday night. There's going to be opportunity for the public to speak, but to put forward someone who I just has, so I think it's important that, just like the people we want to apply for the commission, someone we would want to put forward at this commission is someone who's demonstrated a commitment to human rights, understanding of human rights, an understanding of respectful dialogue, and someone who demonstrates that they can understand why someone might, you know, someone who can have empathy and understand why someone might feel vulnerable or threatened when certain things are said or done. And the Facebook posts of this person really demonstrate kind of the opposite. So, I mean, I think what's done is sort of done, and we're going to have the forum, but I honestly, I think there's been a lack of vetting, and I think there's some other choices we could make, but
Well, perhaps this will be an
Things like that.
exercise in tolerance. Maybe this will be a way to bring people together and talk about things. I thought that's what it was all about. I mean, you can't push away people who might have different opinions. It seems to me you want to be reaching out, and you want to be opening lines of communications, and you want to be tolerant for the purposes of opening lines of communications. I know that there are some things that we must not tolerate, like Nazism, white supremacy, all those things, but there are gray areas where we can make progress, and we can reach out and we can talk. I think we should tread very carefully when it comes to instances of what we're going to tolerate. And I think there are opportunities that we can reach out and maybe see if we can come to common ground. And then you build on that.
And hear
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, but we're talking apples and oranges here. You're talking about the purpose of the commission, which is down the road, not the purpose of the forum. So yes, I agree with what you're saying for the purpose of the commission. I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying for the purpose of the forum. First, the forum is to hear from subject matter experts who have done this before and can help us, guide us in the way of forming this commission so we can do these things, not bringing somebody to tell personal stories that may or may not be important for us to hear to form a forum. So I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. So I do agree with Jamie on that the purpose of the forum is to bring subject matter experts together to help us create a forum to do exactly what Darcy and Rosie is saying to do. And I think that by bringing that people in too soon before we formed this thing it could be dangerous. So, and to tread thinly, yeah, we should tread, you know, so.
Yeah, we don't want to divide. We don't want to divide the town, and we have to be really careful.
Yeah,
which is what we're trying to be. We're trying to be careful and not start off with something that's going to be divisive. Exactly.
Well, I think I'll just make a comment that we've invited 3 diverse speakers to talk about issues that are likely very important to them, and we invited these people to speak to those issues that impact their lives. And we agreed that that was the premise of this and maybe form some questions that we would want to eventually resolve through the commission. Who do we think would be good people for the commission? And the purpose of having this sort of open-ended tell a story about something that's important to you seemed at the time to all of us, somebody will talk about their being African American, and somebody will talk about being an elder, a senior citizen, and somebody will talk about his experiences as a gay person. So those were three broad topics that we were intending to just talk about from the speaker's perspective. How they reacted to certain events in their lives. And it was meant to be as simple as that. We can't, I mean, I'm not sure that we necessarily needed to find out everything about people's lives before this, but the topics were narrow for each speaker.
Right.
And I welcome that they stepped up and they're going to speak. I just hope that they understand what the mission of this forum is and it doesn't go sideways. So that's
what would make you think that they wouldn't? I think
because
everybody.
I've read Facebook posts that are offensive. So I mean, so there you go. So if they say those things in the forum, it's going to be offensive to somebody. So that's not the point of the forum. So as long as they have very clear, as long as you've gone through with them what this is about and what stories you want to hear, then we'll be fine. So
I think that's something that we are all very aware of.
Okay, good.
So let's circle back a little bit and talk a little bit more about kind of how long do we expect the forum to last? Do we have a ballpark for the
an hour?
I think we had planned on an hour and a half. And yeah.
So each speaker has kind of a time window that they'll try to keep to. Is that the format?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to have a meeting on Wednesday to talk about that in detail, narrow that down, talk about some rules of the road and boundaries and things like that. So I thought that's what our Wednesday meeting was for, how long each person would talk, and then where we would take it from there with Joe B to guide us.
Yeah. And Joe D, can you tell us a little bit about Joe B?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, just to reference, fill in a little bit additional information. We've set up a Zoom for the people that have been invited as kind of panelists, and they're not being billed as experts. They're being billed, they're being brought forward just for their personal experiences. The only real expert that I feel like we have really is Joe Borsellino. Joe he's an attorney. He's practiced a lot in the area of civil rights. He was an attorney for the NAACP back many years ago, and he was the founding person, and he put together the language that helped form the Dedham Human Rights Commission. He is still a member and I think chair of that committee. He's managed and mediated lots of discussions around some of the same topics we're having here today. We're going to have a pre-forum meeting with Joe and the other people that were invited, so that we could talk about what the format of the meeting is, what people are expected to talk about, and we really want to spend some time and then with discussion among the people about what they hear. So I think if you have a speaker talk about their personal experience, and then we have Joe kind of moderate a discussion about what was that, what does that mean to you, how do you take that, what do you think? We're going to get into some really gray areas that people might be uncomfortable with, and I think that's one of the reasons I was very happy that we found Joe. Joe was recommended to me by some folks at Suffolk University, and they've done a lot of work with Joe over the years, and he's kind of regarded pretty highly for his ability to kind of have this conversation move. So we'll meet with Joe on Wednesday afternoon. We'll go through what it is we want, and he's aware of what some of the concerns are right now. And I think the goal is to hear people out. Again, they're not subject matter experts. They're panelists. 2 of them live in town. 1 of them doesn't. We had an issue with, not an issue, but we had some difficulty identifying someone who was gay to step forward. And particularly, it's a sensitive area sometimes for people to talk about. And we recommended Steve Harrington. Stephen is the head of the North Shore Alliance for Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual Students. So, and NAGLE does have a chapter in Hamilton. They have several students from Hamilton High School who are members of their organization. So Steve, without talking about people, we'll talk about some of the experiences that he's aware of here. Again, this is to this is kind of to further the conversation, and I will agree that, you know, in order to do the work, we have to have these conversations, and they have to involve everybody. If we're only having conversations with people that agree with us, then, you know, we're not going to get very far. I also think we have all agreed here that it's important for us to make sure that the conversation stays, you know, focused on what we're there to do. It stays, you know, respectful of each other, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that Joe said. I'm glad that we've got Joe B with a kind of history behind him to help us moderate and kind of structure the whole forum. I think that'll be good that we've got somebody that's pretty versed in this stuff. So there was something else I was going to say and it just slipped my mind. I think we're going to have, hopefully we've promoted it enough, and people on this call, I know you've promoted to other people, but you know, I hope that we get a diverse group of people that come, obviously, hopefully in favor of it, of the forum and what we're trying to do. But I would even welcome opposing views to hear what they have to say, and if what we say sways them in any direction, to see why we're doing this to help promote human rights, you know, in general. You know, I think there is gray area sometimes. Everything is not black and white, but I think we have to respect those other opinions, even though they're different from ours or we don't agree with them. You know, obviously there's opinions that I don't agree with, but even
that's life. Isn't that life?
Right?
It's just life.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have to go out to dinner with that person. You just, you know, you just have to be polite and move on, you know, I think that's part of it. But I think the issues that this human rights group is going to face are going to be, like Joe said, these tougher issues to talk about and to discuss and to get them out in the open and kind of air the dirty laundry and do what's right for everybody involved. You know, we don't want to, I think, I'm trying to figure out how to say it, is to I can't quite. Go ahead, Joe. You're gonna say something.
Could I just, you know, I want to be clear. I'm not making, you know, I'm not. I don't know anything. I know that there's been, it's been brought to my attention that there were some Facebook posts that some folks are concerned with, for instance, and in general, I have some great trepidation about things that. About people making judgments about things that happen on social media. I'm not a big believer. Social media does a lot of wonderful things for us, but it's also kind of a trap, and it's also sometimes allowed things to happen. I'll share a personal story, and I hope people bear with me for a second. You know, a couple of years ago, when I was being vetted to be the town manager here, you know, we went through a process. I was interviewed. The position was being offered to me, and then somebody somewhere said to the selectmen, hey, you know, there's this really kind of weird thing on his Facebook page, you know, did you check that out? And when it was brought to my attention, I didn't even know what it was related to. I mean, it took my wife and I, you know, most of an afternoon hunting through Facebook to even find the reference that, and it wasn't even anything I had posted. It was, and I'm not saying that's the case in this situation, but I'm saying I liked something that had to do with veterans, and that group was tied to something else, and something popped up in my feed that had absolutely nothing to do with me. I'll share another example. Here in Swampscott, a selectman was overheard at dinner having a conversation with friends by a waiter. The waiter was in and out of the conversation, didn't like some of what he heard in the conversation, and he shared his version of it on Facebook. That selectman was vilified here in town. There was a campaign to try to run the man out of office. It didn't succeed, but the fact is, it was, a huge amount of anger and vitriol around a rumor over a part of a conversation without the context. I don't know anything about how these posts were up on this person's page. I'm not trying to make an excuse for them, but that's just the point. I don't know anything about how those posts got up. So I'm not willing to stand here and say that I know who or what they are or what they believe in. I know that they shared some posts that when I viewed them, I wasn't impressed with those posts, but I'm not going to make a wholesale judgment on what their character is based on that. And that's my concern about social media. And quite frankly, it's one of the reasons when stuff started to happen over the summer and I started to have a conversation with Sean about, is this the type of thing we should bring forward for the town of Hamilton? Because quite frankly, I get concerned about what happens on social media and how it takes off and catches a life of its own, and it just engulfs everything. Again, I'm not defending the person. I'm not defending the views that were posed in those Facebook threads. I don't know how accurate any of that is. I just know that a person was asked if they could come and share their experiences being an elder in town and how they've occasionally felt ageism, and that person has agreed to do that. Another person's been asked to come and share their experience living in town as a Black person. Let's just hear their story on those things. And I'm asking everybody to please have a little bit of faith that Joe Borsellino and I will be able to manage the conversation in a way that's respectful and hopefully promotes a positive outcome. This is going to be our first crack at it. They're not being put forward by the town as somebody who are experts. They're being put forward because we want to personalize the conversation in town. Because when you talk about racism or systemic racism or white prejudice in the total, sometimes local people find it hard to understand how that relates to what they see on a daily basis. These local stories should help us crystallize that for people and then have a larger conversation about the root problems. That's just my thought on it. I'm just a little, I'm not a big, huge. I think that social media offers us opportunities, but it also creates some challenges for us sometimes, and it cuts off discussion that should be had as opposed to just seeing something and assuming that it's all of the information you need.
Right.
Facebook is, it can cut either way, and I hope that the regional group, human rights group, as well as the Hamilton Commission will be extremely responsible and careful on how they characterize citizens. It could really hurt families if people have taken things out of context or they're making assumptions based on something they saw on Facebook or what someone told them as rumor. I'm telling you, it can be very serious. And there have been episodes of this already with the regional group. So I'm hoping that they will be very, very careful when they post things on social media. That's my biggest concern right now.
And the reality is there are bright line rules for what we all morally know is right and wrong. But as we've been saying, there are gray areas, and the goal of this is to hear each other and understand people's points of view. Don't take it out of context. Let's give everybody an opportunity to tell their story. And we are certainly entitled to think the way we want to and feel the way we want to, but we owe it to ourselves and to others to at least listen with an open mind, because that's what I'm looking forward to doing, is just hearing what people have to say. And I know over the years, where I work with a very diverse group of people, and I would not trade those experiences of what I've learned and how I've grown as somebody who's willing to listen to and try to empathize with people's perceptions, because I'm just one person and I don't know a whole lot, and I need to listen to other people so that I gain an understanding of where other people are operating from. And that's my goal. That's my goal. And I really want to give that opportunity to everybody, no matter who it is, unless of course it's a bright line that is so offensive that nobody would want to hear it. But if we disagree, that means, well, wait a minute, maybe there's some room for seeing it from another person's perspective. And I hope that's what we do in this forum on Thursday.
Yeah. So if I may steer the conversation a little bit, I hear Jamie's concerns. I know the concerns of other folks with the kind of situation with one of the speakers, but I think if we can, between Joe Squared here with our moderator and town manager moderator, if we keep them within the four corners, I think we'll be all right. And it kind of saddens me that we've put a kind of a negative spin on this tonight, because it's a really positive thing that we're doing within the community. And I would hate this to taint the whole thing. And, I think we also have to be aware that there may be people that show up that are adamantly against this human rights group. We just don't know. We may have a 50% split, people in support and people against it. I remember when we were putting this together, I had a good handful of residents call me and express their opinion that they thought this was the worst thing that we could do in town. And they may show up and they have their rights to express their opinions, but I want this to be a positive thing, because I hope we all agree, and I think we do, that human rights are a big issue with everybody. Everyone should have the right to live their life and not be oppressed by anybody and etc. So I think at this point, if anybody else on the board wants to say something kind of in a positive light for the forum, they're more than welcome to. But I'll also open up to, I know we had some people, Anna's here, and Anna, who sat through the whole meeting, and I'm sure if they want to add something, I would welcome it too. But is there anybody else on the board first that wants to add anything other than be there?
I think a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. It's a positive thing. So, and welcome people stepping forward to speak. So, but no, I think, and that's right. I think it's very positive. So,
yeah, and I think part of the passion that we have in this is because we care so much about these issues, and that's why it's disconcerting when you have an issue with your forum that you're trying to make just in your perfect light, but things don't always go as planned. So we're going to kind of roll with the punches here and make the best of it. And I think we're going to come out on top, with some proper moderation and some prepping. But I think that's the key is this is, unfortunately we're having our first test before we've even got the committee appointed, but I think that, if we do this correctly, which I have confidence that we'll do, that we're going to move this forward with a big positive force in town.
So I just have a very quick thing, and I'm not, this is not an argument as much, but because I think I said this before, okay? I'm all in favor of people being able to speak their minds in the right context. I also, and I honestly, I have a life devoted to this. I totally in favor in diving in deep in conversations in appropriate context with people with whom I disagree. That is not what I was saying earlier when I think that regarding this forum. We're anyway, I said what I said. I won't repeat it anymore because I know it is late and we have other people here. And I will note, we have people on here who have submitted their applications to be on the forum a long time ago and have been waiting to have their applications considered.
No, and I know you're upset about that, Jamie. And I know Anna is as well. And I'll take ownership of that. And I apologize as well to Ann and other folks who've applied. But, with so many delays with the forum, we really wanted to have the forum first to promote it and then appoint. And we made that decision as a board. And I know I've had some pressure to appoint before the forum, but I just really wanted to have the forum first so that anybody that applied really knew what they were getting into, or they had that ability to apply afterwards to see what the forum or not really the forum, but what our human rights group was going to be all about. It's different if it was a standing board. People could talk to people already on the board and see what it was doing, but this is our first rodeo with this to say. And I just wanted to make sure that people had all the best information before they applied. It's not no slight to anybody that's applied, and I really do thank you for being so patient, or not patient for that matter. And I totally understand. But, I really want to put our best foot forward here and get a good, diverse group of applicants to choose from that have their hearts in the right place and know what they're getting into. So I'll take ownership of the delay, and I apologize. But Anna or Ann, did you guys want to say anything? Or anybody else on the line for that matter?
I would like to say just a couple of things. I'm actually really excited it's finally happening, and I do think it will be really positive and productive. I think my concerns about the structure of it are not really personal about the particular people, although, I do have some reservations about one speaker, but I actually have more of a process objection on behalf of the overall town, which is the structure of the forum right now sort of has these almost like tokenism examples, like a senior, a Black person, a member of the LGBTQ community. One of the things that makes me a little uncomfortable about that is that no one person can speak on behalf of an entire other group of people. So I think it has a little bit of an element of tokenism in doing so, which I think is a dangerous thing for the town to do. I also think my other sort of main process is that by not keeping it strictly to sort of professional staff, like the Joes or the 5 elected, like democratically elected Board of Selectmen, there was a democratic process that appointed the 5 of you to speak on behalf of the community. And I think that's really important and powerful. And then I will offer that Steve Harrington from NAGLY is, in my opinion, truly a subject matter expertise too. He's been running that organization and navigating through a myriad of difficult, hard conversations for over 25 years. So I think my main concern is actually not about so much the individual politics of any panelist, but the fact that the town has sort of anointed individual residents and elevated them above others, if that makes sense. And so I personally think a better play for the town is to treat all residents equally. I totally support and agree with the outreach to individual residents to say, hey, we're going to have a panel. I know that you have a story to share. Would you please come share your story? I actually think that kind of outreach is really important, and I'm glad that it's happened, but I wouldn't have elevated any resident above other residents in doing that. And I think that you could.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What makes you think we've elevated a resident? We've just asked for some stories.
Well, because they're named on the agenda that went out to the public by name is sort of like, well, that's all residents. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I think I like the idea of framing the panelists as subject matter expertise, democratically elected members or town staff like Russ, Joe D. And then I feel like I love the idea of everyone can come share their story, but I think that all residents should be equally encouraged to do so. And we shouldn't be elevating any one person's story above another, if that makes sense. So I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that individual residents are named as panelists when It's supposed to be about sharing that.
It's not,
and
it's not uncommon, Ann, I mean, to do that, because you got to start somewhere. So this is kind of like
Yeah.
the start, like this is the first meeting, and then
I know,
and then
but
and then it'll hopefully promote people step forward at meeting number 2 or meeting number 3. So I just want to say, I don't, I appreciate what you're saying. I hear you. But I just wanted the public to hear that as the selectmen are not elevating these people above other people. So I know that's your opinion, but just to make clear, that's not what we're doing as select. We're not elevating anybody above anybody else. We're just inviting 3 people to come, but continue speaking. But I just want to make sure that I just made that point. So.
No, I think, and I kind of like Jamie, like, I think we can agree to disagree on that. I do think when you name someone as a panelist to come speak, it does do that. So that's my concern with the way it's being framed. And then I do think, for better or worse, the town does have the potential for sort of a negative look on that when you've done that. So, as a member of the community who maybe has a story to share, but hasn't been explicitly invited, I do think there's a level of discomfort that one person's story is being elevated. Again, my opinion, I totally hear you, Bill, elevated as a representative of a group that may not reflect them at all. So I think that you could have had the same beautiful community conversation where you equally invite all residents to share all of their stories together. And then the people hosting it and moderating it are, like I said, experts in the field or democratically elected leadership. I mean, that is your role. So those are the concerns that I've heard from people about the structure of the panel. Not that they don't want it to happen and they're not particularly bothered about what may or may not come, but we're not treating all of our residents equally. And that's sort of an ironic starting point for the Human Rights Commission to sort of have done that. So
Ida, I'll make a comment that this is just in our eyes was just a random representation, and the fact of the matter is we do have a finite time span. We don't know how long it's going to hold people's attention if it's and emotional, and these are emotional issues. They're very tiring, and I would not want to see this go on for 2 hours. I think an hour and 15 minutes is adequate. And do you know something? Once the commission itself is formed, then if there's, we can use this as a sort of template. And if we need to tweet, or whoever is appointed, if the commission wants to tweak it and have a sort of different format, then that's just fine. But I think for the first one, this seems like a good idea. Slow start, and then let's see where we go from here. But I appreciate your comments.
Thanks, Rosie. And I just want to say, I know that this has been a long process, lots of effort. And I would have liked to have seated the commission first and then have the forum be the first event of the commission. Like, I think that could have been the other way to go. But to be honest, I'm happy this is happening. I came tonight from the Wenham HRC right before this, and it's so exciting to see the work actually happening. So I will end on a positive note. Like, I don't like the structure of it. I think I would have done it differently if I was the queen. I think that you still have a chance to potentially modify the structure of the panel. But I do think this is a valuable first step. I'm just concerned about the appearance on the town and how it might make other residents feel. But it's really exciting to see these things happening and any progress. And I'm just excited for it to happen. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I do think the moderation will be key. And I do think it's important to frame that anyone's individual story never be seen as tokenism, right? Like, I can never speak for all women or all soccer players. Or,
it's not intended to, right? It's
their personal stories.
Their personal stories, and
right.
some of us will be able to relate to some of the things that maybe each person says. So that's what it's intended to do.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you. Everyone's put a lot of time into it, and it's excited to get it going. So.
Well,
those are my comments.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, Anna. Anybody else?
Hi, Tosh Blake here.
Hi, Tosh.
Hello. Hey, just it sounds very exciting that it's going to happen. Interesting. I just want to confirm: is it going to be broadcast, or put on YouTube for viewing later? I assume.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's all I want to add.
Yep. I don't know the timing of it, but it's usually fairly quickly.
Yeah, like a day or two later.
Yeah.
Okay.
right. Anybody else? If not, we can.
You
call
want
it-
to just for people who are listening, just go over again the time, place, give
Yes.
the information so everybody knows when, where, how to get on this thing. Who wants
Well,
to give that update?
Yeah. There's a Zoom link on the town website, I presume, and there's also one. It was posted on the town Facebook page, Pat had edited that to include other forms of logging on to Zoom. Not everybody can just click on. So there'll be the meeting number and the password and so forth. So that's where that information is.
And what time and what day, Rosie? Just
6:30 Thursday, March 4th.
perfect.
And we're
Thursday.
looking forward to the opportunity to share our thoughts for everybody, all of us.
All right, Darcy.
Yes, I move that
Oh.
we adjourn for the evening.
All right, anybody second that?
Should I second?
Well,
Second, please.
So Sean, I'd one thing to add into a discussion, but
Yeah. I forgive me. I forgot to ask if there's any new business. Did you want to add something, Bill, before we?
yeah, so we had
So-
talked earlier about writing a formal letter from the Board of Selectmen to the school committee, with the formal ask of reducing our budget by 1%, just so that they could understand how we were unified on that issue. So I know there's been some movement on their end for things, but I don't think it's exactly what we asked. It's they're sort of solving a different way. So how can we write that? How can we put it on our agenda to write that letter and I'll sign it? Because I think it would be, I would recommend, my opinion, I recommend it. So Joe's raised his hand.
Yeah, let's pause on that.
Okay.
And Joe may be going to say the same thing. Let me have my meeting on Thursday, and then circle back with everybody. Tuesday, sorry.
That meeting's tomorrow.
No.
We got a lot of meetings, Sean. That one's tomorrow.
All right. So
I would just say, if I could add to your thought process, Sean, the school committee's scheduled to take up their final vote on the budget on March 10th. Is that correct? And so you're going to be meeting tomorrow, March 2nd. If the board wants to have a letter, I think that the best thing would be for it to be before March 10th. So if you wanted to do that, I would only say that maybe somebody in the board would want to give you have a motion to authorize you to write a letter on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. As the chair, that would normally be the right course. And then you could send a letter after your meeting tomorrow if you felt it was necessary.
So I would agree to that. Sean, you would propose to send it out to us. We could make comments and send it back to you.
yeah, I could do something like that.
Make a motion to have Sean draft a letter to the school, Hamilton Wenham School Board, requesting budget modifications that we discussed at previous meetings.
Second,
All right. And then a roll call vote. We'll start with Bill.
William Olson, aye.
Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Jamie,
Aaron Knudsen, aye.
Rosie,
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
and myself, Sean Farrell, aye. And I'll circle back after my meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
With everybody on Wednesday. I think my meeting's at 7, so I'll reach out on Wednesday and see if where we are, and then we can I can take a individual poll on where we're going to go with it. Anna, did you want to add something about school committee?
Yeah, I was just going to say the meeting on the 10th is also a public hearing. So for some reason, despite Sean's eloquence in capturing your thoughts, that if anyone individually wanted to speak, the first part of the meeting is a public hearing. So if Darcy or Rosie or Bill or Jamie wanted to offer something else individually, and then we will take our vote on the budget on the 10th. If for some radical reason we can't come to agreement on it or it fails, we do have one more week, I think, before the certification deadline. So we have sort of a backup meeting, but I would definitely encourage that letter to come sooner than later. But if anyone wants to speak on the budget, the first part of the meeting on the 10th is actually another public hearing.
All right, perfect. All right, we had a motion previously.
And I seconded.
And we seconded.
Yeah.
And then Michelle Bailey just came on. Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
We're at the tail end of the meeting. Did you want to add anything before we ended? Or are you just checking in?
Nope, I just heard that you were discussing the school budget and then.
Your ears were ringing. We were just discussing my meeting with you and Gary tomorrow, and then I would update them on Wednesday.
Update your board?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so
All right, so motion, a second, and a roll call. All those in favor, we'll start with Bill.
William Olson, aye.
Darcy?
Darcy Dale.
Jamie?
Jamie Knutson, aye.
Rosie?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
And myself, John Farrell, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.